Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. Are you a parent who is so super competent that you end up doing everything for everyone? Are you the parent that everyone calls to rescue them out of difficult situations? Are you the eternal savior? Well, if I'm talking to you, then this episode is going to ring so true for you. I talk about the savior complex in us parents and how we as parents feel so much desire to fix everyone else's lives and what that does to our children and what it does to us. So stick around because I'm going to help you deal with your savior complex. Coming up next, a mother who's struggling with her son's ADHD, and she wants to know how she can consciously parent through these challenges. We're now going to meet Mary Ellen. She's a mother that is struggling with her 17-year-old son's ADHD, and she is really eager to consciously cope with her challenges. Hello, Mary Ellen. Thank you for joining us. Tell us what's going on.
Hi, Dr. Shefali. Thank you for having me. I discovered your books maybe 4 years ago or so, and I have read all of them. And they're the only parenting book that ever spoke to me. And I said, this makes sense. Yet I find it so hard to do with my son who has ADHD. I feel like he needs a lot of scaffolding, is a word they use, to help them succeed with all the things that need to happen at school and at home and etc. So lots of reminders. For example, right now, I hired a tutor, which I've never done before, to just try to motivate him to study for these darn SATs. So I guess my question is, does all of the stuff in the books, how do you do that for someone with ADHD? Because they need some help and some assistance. We're at a point, I feel like if I were him, I would be just like too much on me and nagging and too much control. And I feel like, at least on my end, it's sort of wrecking the relationship. And, I want to have a good relationship with him.
Yes, so I totally understand. And I love your curiosity. You want to know, how can conscious parenting apply to something as challenging as ADHD? Let me tell you how. Conscious parenting is about you. So no matter what is in front of you, you need to learn the skills to elevate your consciousness so that you stay in a regulated, equanimous place. Conscious parenting has nothing to do with the effect that we want to see in the other. It's all to do with understanding ourselves. So the first place to begin, no matter if your kid has diabetes, ADHD, is second grade or 10th grade, the first place is what is going on inside you, the mother. So when he doesn't listen, when he needs scaffolding, when he needs buttressing, extra help, when he's unmotivated, your first instinct is he has ADHD. But the conscious parenting way is to ask a different question. How am I feeling right now? How am I dealing and coping with what is showing up? So tell us, what goes on inside you? What are your thoughts? What are your feelings?
I feel extreme frustration. And also, like, if I don't control things, things will collapse. And what will happen in the future?
Okay.
I'm like the textbook case in your books.
Yeah, you're anxious. It's normal. You're stressed out. That's normal. But you may be putting a lot of that blame and responsibility on that label. And that's why labels can be constricting. They are relieving on the one hand because we're like, phew, now I know what's wrong with him and I can fix it. So it gives you some relief. But on the other hand, people tend to blame the label or put all the money into that pit and point all the fingers in that direction. So we have to be careful because no matter what is happening on the outside, we have a lot of control on the inside. So that's what I'm going to help you with today. You feel everything is going to fall apart if you don't control things and you're worried about the future. These two things, just these two things you said to me, immediately raise your emotional temperature from 10 to 1,000. Because look at the burden Mary Ellen is putting on herself. That's what we parents do, right? When we see something wrong in our children or that we think is wrong, we put the burden on us to fix it. Just that burden to change somebody else, even if the person was the most easygoing, normal person, right, quote unquote, your temperature rises because you have put something on you that is unrealistic. So the first thing we have to tell ourselves every day, whether we have a child with ADHD, a toddler, a teenager, a normal kid, a neurotypical kid, or not, is I am not in control of this other person. So let's try to say that right now.
I am not in control of my son.
So what goes through your body when you say that?
In my heart and soul, I believe that, but it's hard to enact.
Okay, so this is always the conflict between the soul or the heart, the intuition, and our cerebral, rational, earthly part, right? Your mind is always going to override that by saying, but he can't even pass his SATs. What'll he do in the future? What kind of job will he get? Will he work in a department store? Will he never be successful? Who will marry him? Correct? That is the mind. It's the ego's way of creating calm, but it actually creates more stress. The soul knows, your soul, because it's wise, knows that we have no control beyond the present moment, correct?
Correct.
So this is why you're in conflict and in panic, because you don't fully allow yourself to release control. Now, let me ask you some basic questions. Can he perform his daily activities of living?
Yes.
Okay. Can he function at the basic levels expected in society?
Yes.
Do you think he could, push come to shove, have a basic 9 to 5 job, at least minimum wage?
Yes, definitely.
Oh, look at you. You're like, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think he can basically, after 21 or 22, function completely independently in terms of just paying the rent, taking care of the house, living in a room with other roommates?
I think he could. He might earn hard lessons along the way.
Of course.
But yes.
Okay, very good. So basically, you're telling me he can survive.
Yes.
Now, where is the conflict? Technically, he's okay. The conflict is in Mary Ellen's, the mother's parental expectations. Your expectations are not matching the basic reality. At a basic level, your kid is fine, correct? If I just went by that criteria,
Yes.
can he function? Is he well-mannered? Can he get along in society? Can he hold down a minimum wage job? You say yes. He can actually get an A++ if those were your expectations, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Now imagine if society said those were the expectations for a superstar. Wouldn't your child be a superstar?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. When you think of your child in that way, does it bring calm to you?
Yes.
Okay. Now, all the rest, who do you think is putting that extra pressure, those extra expectations?
Me.
And culture.
Correct.
It's not just you,
Yeah.
it's culture too. It's not just your fault.
Right.
But look at what culture has done to the parental mind. It has messed us up because culture says he should not just get a minimum wage job. He should be a superstar. He should have 3 cars. He should be set up for super success. Oh, that's a great aspiration, but we can't control that. You know, I have a 21-year-old neurotypical child. Do you think I can control that in her? No, I can't. Do you think that I can tell you how to live your life? What your goals for success should be? No, we can never do that for any human. So culture has intoxicated and seduced the parental mind with the delusion of a godlike superiority that we can control our children. You can control your son after the age of 18 no more than you can control me. And that is the humbling reality of human nature. So now, do you want to accept your limitations as a human parent? Or do you want to act like you have godlike superiority?
No, I want to accept.
Okay. Because what does acceptance bring? It brings
Peace.
exactly. And peace brings connection. Peace brings harmony. Peace now creates empowerment. Telling your child, do this, do that, do this, do that, is not empowerment. It is actually the opposite of empowerment. It is a stripping away of empowerment. Instead, creating a plan with your son, setting him up for his own goals is the way to go. Now, having said that, yes, you do need to create boundaries. So the boundaries you do get to create are whether you have Wi-Fi after the time of 8 o'clock at night, whether you give him devices. Those are all in your control. Whether you give him pocket money, whether you allow him to go out at 2 o'clock at night. Well, even that you really don't have much control over because he's almost 18. But you can say, if you're living in my house, I don't want this. But that's it. To tell him to live his life with high expectations is out of place for you. You can have them, but he doesn't have to have them for himself.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And it's amazing how you think just because they're your child, you can somehow mold them.
Yes. Now, having said that, let's get into your micro situation, which is you have a child with ADHD. For all parents out there listening, children with ADHD brains, as I've come to learn, have completely different wiring going on inside them. Their serotonin, dopamine levels are different. They are often lower than the average typical brain. Therefore, they are more pleasure seeking. They are more goal oriented actually than we can imagine. What that means is that if the goal is very far away, they actually get demotivated. If the goal is quick and easy and they can achieve success, that will give them the dopamine hit that gets them hooked in. And that's why children with ADHD brains are more susceptible to video gaming and to social media, because social media and video gaming is adrenaline producing constantly. And that's why these children get hooked on to the adrenaline more than the other brains, because their brain is actually craving that even more. So knowing that, you as a parent get to make choices that you feel are good for his brain while he lives with you. Just like a child who has diabetes, the parent has a choice of how much sugar they expose the child to while they're living with them. So you do have some control. The most important control I need you to have is over your own anxiety, is over your own stress, over your own expectations of yourself as a parent. Control that, so that you can then create connection, so that then he can be empowered, so that then he can at least leave this house with more self-control and self-worth than the way you are going about it.
Yes.
Now, you've hired a tutor. You can say, my expectation of you living in this house is to have a tutor once a week. But what he does with the tutor, how engaged he is with the tutor, is now not in your control. So if you want to spend the money on a tutor, but he's wasting it, you have a choice. He also can sabotage the whole thing and choose to not go to college. Now, what can you do? Now, say he did go to college, he could sabotage it once he's in college. What I'm trying to show parents is that we cannot control anything beyond a point. We could control them barely till they were toddlers. And unless we're watching our children 24/7, we cannot even presume that they're going to be, safe. They could enter harm. The minute he goes to college, there could be a harmful incident. So releasing control is one of the hardest things for us parents to do, especially when we're worried about our children. But in fact, more when we're worried about our children, do we need to release that control, because that anxiety ups our control even more. So as we wrap up, Mary Ellen, tell me, what are your greatest takeaways from this conversation?
That I have absolutely no control over who he is and his essence. And I can't just say it. I have to really believe it and act it. I have to find a way to let that anxiety and control go, because at least it's wrecking my end of the relationship. I feel like a nag, and I don't like it.
Beautiful, beautiful. And, there's some ways that you can help your nagging. You can create an alarm system on his phone and your phone, and just let the alarm go off with do your homework, time for tutor. Let the alarm be the nag. Why should you be the nag?
Right.
correct? And you tell him, I am done being your nag because I'm actually disabling you. I'm actually not teaching you anything and it's destroying our connection. You can even open up and cry and say, I'm tired of being a nag. I'm so sorry that you have reached your limit with me, but it's coming out of my worry. And I've decided from today that I need to trust you. You are brilliant. You are sovereign. You are amazing. If you love yourself, you are going to do what matters for you. And at the very basic level, you as a mother are going to tell yourself, he can survive at a very basic level.
Right.
We always come down to worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, can my kid just survive? Yes. If I die tomorrow, can my kids survive? Yes. So once you have that taken care of, you've done your job. It's not your job to create a superstar. It is your job to get your kid to adulthood safe and healthy with some degree of self-respect and self-worth. And I think you've done that already. Anything more is a delusion of control, superiority, and power. So work on that. I think you have the ingredients in place. You just need to give yourself the permission, like all of us parents, to not play God.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining and for helping all parents who are listening.
Thank you, Dr. Shefali.
This mother's story really touched my heart because I could see that she was so keen to apply the principles of conscious parenting, but her own challenges watching her son suffering in his life, right? Dealing with his ADHD, that was making her so anxious. And because she was anxious, she entered control. And that's what all of us parents do. When we're anxious, it shows up as nagging, overparenting, over-controlling, over-micromanaging. And then our children realize that, hey, my parent doesn't trust me. My parent feels like they need to control me. Maybe I really am stupid. Maybe I really am dumb. Maybe there is something wrong with me. And then they begin to embody that and become passive, become unmotivated, become lackluster and defiant against our nagging. Then we feel even more disheartened because we're thinking to ourselves, hey, I'm just loving my child. I'm just caring about my child. I'm worried about my child. But we don't realize that that kind of love and care that comes out of a state of panic is actually control, and it is disempowering to our children. Every human being, including our children, wants the other in their life to see them as powerful, to see them as competent, to trust them. So if every time you meet your girlfriend and all she communicates to you is, did you bring your purse? Did you have water today? Did you take care of your skin? Did you do this? Did you do that? You'll feel like, what the hell? Why is she treating me like a child? Does she not think I'm intelligent? Well, most of us parents treat our children as if they don't have a brain in their mind. I do this all the time to my daughter, by the way, and she hates it. She says, stop treating me like a child. And then we expect them to be adults, but we are crippling them constantly by our over-caring, our over-parenting. So all parents out there, if this is your pattern, take stock. You don't want your children to feel as if you don't honor their intelligence. You don't trust that they will do what's right for them. While you need to be in charge, and I'm not saying don't create boundaries, be very careful how much you overstep your boundaries and begin to overparent and overcontrol. Coming up next, an update from a mother who was on a previous episode. She was struggling with her 16-year-old son's depression and his restrictive eating disorder. Joining me now is Jennifer, a mom I spoke to in an earlier episode that was entitled, How Our Anxieties Harm Our Children. Last time we spoke, she was struggling with her 16-year-old son's phobia to try new foods. Hi, Jennifer. Welcome. Tell us how it's going since then.
Oh, it's going so good. I'm so happy to be back to tell you how you've helped us. You know, the two things you said was that food becomes a surrogate parent, and that both Matthew and I, our body was so wise in that we both controlled food to help with the maternal anxiety that him and I were both facing in my childhood and his childhood. And I really sat with that. And the first thing I did was go talk to Matthew. And we've had conversations before, but I think him hearing that his body was so smart and why maybe he even struggled with food, it gave him a new perception of his restrictive eating. And it gave him a sense of empowerment, thinking, oh, I can change this now. And he was open to an RTT appointment, which is a hypnotherapy appointment, which I think he was able to understand that maybe there's some unconscious unwiring I am willing to do because this really came from a place of a little Matthew being anxious, but big Matthew today doesn't need to be so anxious. And I have to tell you, we went out vacation and going out to dinner with the child with Arfid. Anybody who has that knows that food, eating, it's something they avoid. It's very difficult to go and be around food and want to enjoy going around out to dinner.
Can you give us the acronym for it, what it stands for?
Avoidant restrictive food intake disorder.
So Matthew has been suffering from Arfid. You had food issues. He was only eating a few foods. I remember when you came to me. Okay, so go ahead. You guys went out for dinner.
Yeah, I went out to dinner and, the first night we went to a local place and it had his quote safe foods, which are fries and a dessert that was a cookie, like this baked cookie thing. And granted, it's not the most healthiest thing, but his excitement to do it, his excitement afterwards of this was so much fun going out to dinner and talking and understanding there's a connection piece to food that it can feel safe and secure. And we ended up going to that restaurant 3 times because he just was so excited about dinner and was looking forward to it. And for a child like that, who since the age of 3 has never looked forward to a meal, was really exciting for both my husband and I to see. So not that we wanted to go to that restaurant 3 times, but to see his joy in that was very much a shift.
Wow. So what you did after our podcast episode was that you began to reframe the food restrictive quote unquote disorder as actually a communication of an underlying anxiety. And actually the way the body was constricted around food was because it was suffering with this anxiety. And it wasn't a bad body or it wasn't a bad thing to have this disorder. It was a symbol of something going on. And once you reframe that as wisdom, it became an empowering thing for him. And then he began to explore it more. Isn't that funny?
Yeah. That we think about the word weight. I took the weight of the pressure off of him. I took the burden of the weight off of me thinking I needed to fix him. And I started to release my own internal emotional weight and understanding, because I've learned from you and through graduating from your institute, that I have a really resourced inner parent that is wise, that is compassionate. And I started to tune into my own inner parent to use that as a place to come from versus using food as a surrogate parent. And for me, that has been my biggest shift. And I have to say, I weighed myself today because I was curious and I have lost weight since I've seen you. And I've seen a number I haven't seen in a year plus. And I know it's because I've started to nurture myself.
I love that. I love that. And what you're really saying is that your restrictive eating was a reaction, an unconscious reaction to controlling something. And what that something was really was this unremitting anxiety. That's what children do. They control the food, they're pooping, they're sleeping, whatever they can control.
Yeah.
And it in itself is not the problem. The problem is what it is serving. And it was serving as a surrogate soother for this anxiety. And once you begin to take care of the inner anxiety in a different way, then food stops being that surrogate parent and you begin to associate beauty with food, not control with food. And that's what the narrative has been changed to in your family.
Yeah.
But I'm going to challenge you even more is to, throw away that weighing machine and truly tune in to what your body needs. And if you're eating in terms of what it needs and it feels like, and you're allowing yourself to trust what it's saying to you, it doesn't matter what that number says. So you don't have to throw it away, but put it away, because I would like you for the next few months at least to challenge and invite yourself to tune in even more. You have been so disconnected from your body. And now it's time to really reunite. And every meal, check in. Every hour, check in. What are the feelings? What are the energies inside my body? What is my body trying to tell me? What does my body need to eat? Is it really hungry or is it just tired? And as you begin to create this dialogue, you will trust yourself and then teach Matthew how to trust himself even more.
Yes, you said something about food becoming beauty. And what I realized I started to do that I didn't realize I was doing is I started to create plates of food for myself, like a presentation. And I was focused on, and it was so unconscious, but it was like the art of food. The plate became art. I focused on colors. I found myself taking pictures and sending it to my husband. And then I was sending it to my friends. And for the last while, food has become like an art for me, which sounds so odd to say, but it is because I started to really just think about what feels good right now. If I was like my own parent talking to a child, what feels good right now? And so I've always known about intuitive eating. I've never been able to tap into it fully. And I really feel like I'm starting to feel into what my body, and I'm realizing that it's not always breakfast food, quote unquote, breakfast food that I want at breakfast time.
Right.
I'm realizing I'm eating probably less than I really thought I needed to eat because my mind had a schedule of when to eat.
Yes.
So it has been it's been a very creative process, which is not like me. So that's when I know that, wow, I'm really tapping into something I haven't felt before.
Oh my goodness. And so what was food to you before? If you had to give 3 words, emotional words that you used to have around the idea of food, what would those 3 words be before our podcast episode?
It was a distraction, it was a filler, and it was a soother for me. It filled up the space of being so uncomfortable.
Wow. And what would it be now?
It feels low. It feels light. It feels fun. Descriptive words that when I hear myself saying it, I can't believe I'm talking about food because food has been so hard.
You have literally recreated a relationship with something you were putting in your body, where before you were in this tug of war with food. It was this unsettled relationship with something that you were using and it was using you. It was this prey predator kind of attitude, adversarial. And now it's like we're one, we have a relationship. You've really released a lot. How has Matthew been different in other areas of his life now that he is beginning to change this dynamic with food?
He also seems more fun and in flow. And he has been doing more things with his friends for this last bit of summer. He's been getting out and been active. He's very motivated to try out for the golf team. Just this engagement in life. He feels like he's headed in that direction. And his willingness to start even talking about food. Food was, for him as well, a topic that he was done discussing and done getting help for.
Have you ever taken a cooking course or done some cooking together?
Yeah, that's a big leap. He's more ready to even discuss taking a bite of food. And his girlfriend right now is super supportive, and she has been researching, and she found this concept called food mapping. And it's another approach and something he hasn't heard about, but he's open, and he actually tried a bite of sweet potato fries yesterday because fries is a safe food, but sweet potato is a very different category. And he took 3 bites, which for Matthew is a lot. And for people who do work with, kids with Arfid, to get 3 bites is always the goal, but so hard to do.
Last thing I'll leave you with is also release your anxiety around him changing.
Oh, that's a hard, yes. Yes, that's
Because part of
very hard.
trusting our children is trusting that they're doing what they need to do right now. So you can't say you trust him and then keep checking on him. Did you eat? Did you eat? Did you eat? Try this, try that. You can just have fun with it. So when I said to cook, I didn't mean to eat it, but can you just bake a cake together? Can you have his girlfriend and you start and he just watch? Why can't we cook? We don't have to eat. If you take out the goal of eating and just enjoy the prep and the fun of cooking, that's another way to change the relationship. But I think you may get stuck now into the let's change and be hyper focused on a new kind of agenda and show up as controlling again. You need to release this altogether, that it's his call, it's his destiny, it's his relationship with his body. And the more trust you give him, the more he will discover that inner trust when he's ready.
Yeah, that is hard. And when I felt you said that, it was like, I just need to keep focusing on me and trusting my own body.
Exactly, exactly. Well, Jennifer, thank you for your inspiring update. I'm so glad that things have shifted and I'm so grateful you came back.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It was so heartwarming to listen to Jennifer's update, and nothing pleases me more than when a parent comes and tells me, I had an aha moment, I made a shift, and guess what? My child is doing much better. I mean, that's all what we parents want, is our children to feel free. But as Jennifer explained very clearly, it's all about her. She needs to make the shifts. She needs to stay focused on herself, work on her own inner pain, and then shine the light on others. You see, the traditional parenting model focuses on the child changing their behavior, but the conscious parenting method focuses on the evolution of the parent. That's what all my books talk about, because I've seen time and time again that when the parent shifts, when the parent becomes more mindful, more attuned, more aware, and when the parent heals their own inner anxieties, now the landscape, the entire terrain of the parent-child relationship undergoes a drastic metamorphosis. If you've enjoyed listening to this episode, don't forget to subscribe and tune in again. And I can't wait to have you join us on the next episode of Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. Parenting and You with Dr. Shefali is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical, psychological, psychotherapeutic, coaching, healthcare, or other qualified professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment.